Welcome to Win the Day from Back to the Bible. I'm your coach, Pastor Nat, and today we're going to talk about getting your priorities straight. Are you a giver, a saver, a taker, or a combination of all the above? I suppose most of us ebb and flow from one to another. But in my experience, givers are few and far in between. Giving our resources away is an act of trust and wisdom. But knowing that giving to God is always the right answer, and that motivates me to be a giver more and more and more. But why? Well, let's read a troubling and confusing account in John chapter 12, beginning in verse 1. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment, made from pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, who he was about to betray him, said, "Why was the ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me." Jesus has been avoiding the Jewish crowds because the Pharisees are out to kill him. The Pharisees have instructed the people to report any sighting of Jesus. Well, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, they don't care. They love Jesus. So what do? They host him instead of betray him. Mary anoints Jesus with an expensive nard perfume. Nard was a root plant and was from northern India. Because of its distance and its purity made it very expensive. 300 denarii was about a year's wages for the average person back then. In other words, it was very expensive. But when God has given us His Son, when He has offered us peace with Him and a key to the kingdom of heaven, any gift we could give would never be equal. Well, Judas, who is preparing to betray Jesus, makes a noble statement about giving to the poor. But as you may have caught it, his heart was all wrong. It wasn't to give that money away to the poor. Instead, it was to steal and save it for himself. Jesus is God. He knows Judas's heart. He knows his real intent and what he desires to do. Instead, Jesus reminds the disciples and his friends that his time is short. Death is coming. Sacrifice is necessary. And then Jesus says, "For the poor you will always have with you, but you do not always have me." What does that even mean? Is Jesus suggesting that we are to neglect the needy and only give to God through service and tithing to church or ministries? Not at all. The Bible is full of commands to care for the needy and the disenfranchised. Jesus was challenging the disciples to keep their priorities straight. Jesus was right there in front of them for only a short time. So here's my challenge for you today. Get your priorities straight. Are you giving to God first? Are you giving your time, your treasure, and your talent? Or are you saving it continually for an unspecified time or event? Are you taking advantage of a situation or even a person? If so, your priorities and heart need reorientation. Jesus gave his life for you. He wants us to be generous with all that he's given us. Today, get your priorities straight. Give freely out of God's grace to you. When you do, you will win the day.